Hello and welcome. It's Scott Jansen here, and I'm congratulating you first off for joining us on how to use the strategic hypnotic interview to uncover hidden secret clues of the unconscious mind. Now, if this is the first time attending one of our online courses or the first time you've actually studied or attended a hypnosis course in general, the best place for us to start is give you the layout of how this course is going to be partaken, and also give you the structure, what's expected of you, and how to get the most from this training course. Firstly, being that this is an introduction into conversational hypnosis, what you'll notice straight off the bat is this is a non-scripted version of conversational hypnosis. This introduction course has been designed to introduce you to a larger hypnotic strategy known as the strategic hypnotic interview. So to get the most from this training, what I do require you to do is get a notepad and pen, but also give yourself the time to watch and re-watch these videos, absorb the information, but also put yourself in the position of the small metaphors and the examples that I give you based on how to become a better hypnotherapist, how to improve your sense and power of using conversational hypnosis, and how you could improve a flourishing career as an already working hypnotist. If you don't know who I am, my name is Scott Jansen. I've been a full-time hypnotherapist for the last 18 years. I also have Australia's largest hypnotherapy training company, in which we are extraordinarily fortunate to train thousands of the best hypnotists in Australia, but also teach globally, online courses. We have published a few books, and also I'm the creator of over 35 home study programs. What I endeavor to do with this training of how to use the strategic hypnotic interview is give you my understanding of 18 years experience. Now, this program has been put together by working with a little over 8,000 clients in that time. And what I endeavor to do is show you my version of conversational hypnosis that suits the context of working with clients. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up first, because this will be a training to put you in the position of actually seeing clients. You'll notice it's not very technique driven. I'm not just going to show you how to hypnotize people. There are dozens and dozens of courses out there you can do to learn how to do that. What's of bigger interest for me is how can you take the skills of learning hypnosis and apply it practically and actually start to heal and work with people, maybe full-time, part-time, whatever your heart desires. So once again, to recap, this is how to use the strategic hypnotic interview, which is going to teach you how to investigate a client's problem, the context of why they've come to see you as a hypnotist, and work with conscious information and unconscious information. This alone, if I was to choose any of the strategies that I've designed and any of the strategies that I've used throughout my career to best suit myself as a hypnotist, if I could only choose one, it would be this very interview process. As a bonus, at the end of this training, you'll actually receive live footage of myself working and training advanced hypnotherapists on how to use the hypnotic interview strategically, so you can see the theories and the thoughts put in place so you can actually apply things practically. One of the best ways to learn is to not only listen and view footage and absorb yourself in the information, but also see myself applying the same rules and principles that I'm asking you to master on this course. So that'll be the bonus footage at the end. I'm very, very excited that you get to see that. I'll put that at the end of this training as a bonus for you. And what I suggest, like this material, take the time to study it. Like any good hypnotist will tell you, it does take time to master such an advanced skill. So I endeavor in this course to make it nice and simple and just to introduce you to the first couple of ideas and concepts that I help you master this very powerful tool. So when you're ready, you've got that notepad and pen, join us on the first session, which will be your next video, on the understanding of why the strategic hypnotic interview is so important to evolve yourself as a master hypnotist, if you will, and go above what most hypnotists cannot do. I'm very excited. We'll see you in the next course, the next program, and the next training video we have for you. I'm Scott Jansen. Bye for now. Hello and welcome back. So welcome to your first session of how to use the strategic hypnotic interview to uncover unconscious clues. So let me give you the idea of how the strategic hypnotic interview came about and why it's so important that you understand the mindset of a great hypnotist. I first want to put you in the position, even if this is your first time, to put you in the position of actually seeing a client. So for some of you, I might be fast forwarding ahead of time, but just imagine for the sake of this video and this training program that you are seeing a client. Let me give you an idea of how clients will come to see you, what they'll talk to you about, and how you can start to investigate a client's problem, and why it's crucial for your success and your client's success and the longevity of your career to do this properly. When a client comes to see you, they're coming to see you for things like stop smoking, weight loss, addictions, phobias, fears, habits, anything you can think of that's an affliction, that's a negative response in their life, a client can come to see you for. So they're going to book you as a hypnotist, and your goal as a hypnotist is to help cure them, to help heal them, and to help overcome this with them so they can live a more fulfilling and abundant life. So let's take a classical example of a stop smoking client. A client will come to see you ready to obviously quit smoking. Usually your clients will come to see you representing the bad and the negative state, and they want the opposite of that. So if a client's a smoker, in most cases you'll find they want to be a non-smoker. If a client has weight issues, the same rules apply. Your client will want to lose weight. If your client's embarrassed, scared, or afraid, they just want the opposite of that. Now this may seem simple, but I believe it's one of the most fundamental mistakes that hypnotists make when working with clients. When a client presents what is called context, that's the reason they're there, that's the stop smoking or the weight loss. What we can tend to fall into, and this is definitely a case in the more classical and impractical versions of hypnosis that are more script driven. It means that the hypnotist thinks, well, okay, my client's coming to see me for a stop smoking session. The best thing I can do is get my stop smoking script, or I have stop smoking techniques for that. If you're under that assumption or you're in that mindset, for the sake of this training, I want you to put that aside for now, because I'm about to reveal something to you that a lot of hypnotists do not know, or if they do know, overlook. When a client presents a problem to you, the context again of I need to quit smoking or I want to lose weight. A problem that a client has does not exist in the conscious mind. As you're well aware, we have two parts of the mind. We have the conscious mind and the unconscious or subconscious mind. Now we'll refer to it as the unconscious mind for the sake of this training. So when you sit down, your client says, well, I'll use my example, Scott, I really want to quit smoking. If I go ahead and jump into a stop smoking script, if that's what I decided to do, or that's what I was using at the time, or a simple stop smoking technique, and there are millions out there, I'm doing something incredibly incorrect at that point. The problem my client tells me consciously is not the problem. I'll repeat that to you, and I will explain. You'll also see on the Bodo's footage exactly this understanding. Now, this is a mindset shift for you as a hypnotist that is crucial. Your mindset and what you believe in and what you understand is more fundamentally important than any technique you can understand yourself. So when a client sits in my office or our office, says, Scott, I want to quit smoking, or Scott, I want to lose weight, or Scott, I want to overcome this phobia I have. What they're giving you is a conscious interpretation of the problem. We know by now, if you've done enough of our courses, you've followed our literature, you've followed our blogs, maybe you've been to other courses before, it's nothing new, but it's a rule that a lot of hypnotists don't understand and forget about. All of our problems, bar none, exist in the unconscious mind, which is why we use something called trance, which is hypnosis, to get rid of conscious thinking or that conscious interpretation in order to directly influence the unconscious mind, because that's where the problem is and that's where the solution's going to need to start from. We have to learn unconsciously first. We have to destroy our problems unconsciously first. So when a client says, I want to quit smoking, or I want to lose weight, or I need to get over this phobia, I need to make more money, I need more sophistication in my life, I need to stop being embarrassed. If you fall into the trap of jumping head first into using a technique, you are fixing the incorrect problem. What your client presents to you from that first question, which is, what do you want to work on? Or they just tell you straight out what they're here for today. They are giving you their conscious interpretation, and they're giving you what's called a circumstance. The circumstance of the problem that exists in the unconscious mind is exhibited consciously through an action. I'll give you that again. The problem that exists in the unconscious mind exhibits an action at the conscious level. So it means that there is something known classically as the root cause of a problem. Think of this as weeding a garden. Let's imagine that the weed that you see above the surface, above the soil, is this quote-unquote stop smoking issue or weight loss issue or phobia issue. If you were to just go ahead and rip the top of the weed off, what is left? Well, you'd probably agree that the root that is underneath the soil is left. And over time, if not treated and poisoned properly, that weed will come right on back and probably a little bit stronger because now it's resilient. So our job as a hypnotist and with the strategic hypnotic interview is we need to dig under the soil, pull out that weed from the root first. By doing this, we're not allowing that root to grow again. So the same things apply as a hypnotist. If we do not use the strategic hypnotic interview, which I'm going to teach you the classical version of this, the easy and the most novice and the easiest to grasp version of the strategic hypnotic interview. Plus, again, you have that bonus footage to see a more advanced structure around it as well. If we do not use the strategic hypnotic interview correctly, all that's going to happen is we're just going to work on the surface problem, which is I can't quit smoking. I can't lose weight. I can't make money. He'll never love me. What we need to do in order for our clients to have lifelong change, avoid relapse, and avoid that problem coming back is get underneath first. So what we do with a strategic hypnotic interview is we're going to ask certain questions around a client's problem to find out what's really happening, to find out what's the mindset around this problem for them. What's keeping this problem existing? Why is this problem there? For what purpose does this problem serve this client? If we jump straight in head first that this is a stop smoking session or a weight loss session or just an anxiety session and don't deal with the root cause underneath, that problem will come right on back. So the strategic hypnotic interview allows some certain questions to be asked to find out what is really going on. If the stop smoking or the weight loss is a circumstance of the conscious mind, we need to find out why is the unconscious mind keeping that problem there. We know the unconscious mind loves to work towards health, is always trying to fix us, and always trying to cure us, and always trying to make us well in life. So why is it that it's so attached to this problem? If it realizes that this is a problem, the unconscious mind, why does the unconscious mind get rid of it? That's what we need to find out. And you'll be pleasantly surprised that the problem your client wants to work on will not be the problem you as the hypnotist work on for them. But understanding this is important. This is that mindset shift already. For you as the hypnotist, you will find that the problem your client wants to work on consciously, which is the smoking, the weight loss, the phobias, the addictions, is not what you'll actually work on as the hypnotist. By finding out certain ideas, mindset, by asking certain questions to your client, they'll actually present to you the real issue, the real unconscious root cause, and the real problem that the unconscious mind needs to fix. And as a side benefit, once that problem unconsciously is resolved, the conscious level issue of the smoking, the weight loss, will take care of itself. So let me give you this. This is the mindset I need you to have for this program and for your longevity as a hypnotist. The problem your client gives you is rubbish. That's the easiest way I can present this to you. The problem your client needs to work on is not what they tell you, being this reason only. A client can only tell you consciously an amalgamation or assumption about their problem. Why? Because the conscious mind cannot penetrate the unconscious mind and find out what's really going on. It's why for you sitting at home watching this, you might find that your problems seem to exist no matter how much you try and get rid of them. Have you ever tried to lose weight and notice after a couple of weeks, it gets harder and harder and harder and you fall off your diet over and over again? We call this the yo-yo dieting. Have you ever found that you can save a little bit of money, then you lose it? You save a little money, then you lose it. Maybe you have relationships, then they break up. You have another relationship and you break up. If you were to go see a hypnotist working on relationship issues and they only fixed the relationship issue at the top, you'll find that same pattern, that same loop that you're caught in will exist and will keep on existing, and you'll be stuck on this emotional roller coaster. So the strategic hypnotic interview, as you move into how to do it, is finding out what is really going on. Understand that mindset, that what a client tells you is not the real problem because they don't know what it is. If we look at smoking as an example, there are many ways that the government, through advertising and the pictures on the stop cigarette, on the cigarette boxes, is trying to help people quit smoking by having bad pictures and images to hopefully scare people out of it. They also talk about you may have seen the adverts that talk about how to quit smoking or steps you can take. But why is it that not only is the percentage of smokers growing, but the percentage of smokers who try and quit is also growing as well? It's because it's not working on the real issue. If it was as easy enough to work on the issue consciously, we would never have problems in our life. That's why we need to hire someone like a therapist to intervene, and hopefully the therapist does a good enough job in order to find out what is really occurring. And this is where the strategic hypnotic interview excels. So that's the mindset of using the strategic hypnotic interview. Some of those ideas may take a little bit of time to experience for yourself and understand, which is why I suggest to rewatch this video again. But let's move on to the next video, where we're going to learn a couple of ways we can start the hypnotic interview to give you some more understanding of why it's so important. But also remember, you have that bonus footage at the end. It's going to allow you to see it live in action, and myself actually teaching advanced therapists how to use it strategically. So when you're ready, jump over to the next video. Again, keep that notepad and pen. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. Hello and welcome back to session 2 of how to use the strategic hypnotic interview for conversational hypnosis to uncover these unconscious hidden clues, or as we just discovered, the root cause. Hopefully you listened to the first video thoroughly. You started to absorb that mindset that I was talking about. Now let me also give you this. If those ideas seem a little bit difficult to comprehend right now, that is totally fine. Throughout this video and throughout our other programs, you'll find that I spent a lot of time trying to shift the mindset of a hypnotist to make your life easier, but also give you some understanding that's outside the classical version of hypnosis, especially in the scripted version. So let's get back to it. So the strategic hypnotic interview that we're going to start to apply, plus you get the bonus footage as well, is going to present to you a certain way to think and some certain questions that you would have to ask your client in order to find out what is really going on. Now, in order for us to do this, let's put you in the context of the hypnotherapist sitting in front of your client. And you're going to be asking certain questions that go outside of just the conscious reference point that your client gives you. The context is important. The context, when I use that word, what I mean is why your client comes to see you. As an example, let me give you the first version of the strategic hypnotic interview that goes wrong. So I'm going to take both positions as the hypnotherapist, but also take the client's position as well. So if you can imagine for me, I'm sitting in front of my client, and I know why my client's here. They've probably booked with my receptionist on the phone, so I have an understanding of what they want to work on. Let's use the classical stop smoking session again. So my client's sitting next to me, the paperwork's done, we're all good to go. I've got permission, they're comfortable, everything's in place in order to have a very successful and very happy and exciting session. So the first question I'm going to start with is I need to find context. Although I know what my client's there for, I just want to remember for myself and also guarantee that's the session I want to work on today. So let's say I'm working with Joe Bloggs. I'm the hypnotherapist, but I also take Joe Bloggs' position as well. So I'm going to say, Joe, thank you for coming. Why are we here today, Joe? What do you want to work on? And Joe says, well, Scott, I've been a smoker for 30 years, and I think it's time that I quit now. Now, if I'm under the classical understanding, I'm going to say, great, Joe, I've got the best technique for that. Let me go get my script. I'm going to pull out my hypnotic script. I'm going to ask Joe to close his eyes, and I'm going to start to work through the script from start to finish. Now, it's not to say this won't work, but what I'm not doing is getting to the root cause. If I'm working on Joe's conscious interpretation, which is, Scott, I'm a smoker, which probably makes me think as a hypnotist that he can't quit by himself. That's why he's come to see me. That's the reference I can make. If I pull my script out or my stop smoking technique, I'm working on the surface level problem. If you recall back to the weed on the surface, I'm working on the surface. I need to find out what's underneath. What's keeping that there? Why is that root so firmly attached to the soil? I need to pull that out as well. Then the smoking will come away or work out by itself. So let's back this up again. Let's take the position again and let's ask a next question. So Joe, what are you here for today? What are we working on? That's a context question. Joe's going to say, well, Scott, I've been a smoker for 30 years and I cannot seem to quit. If I stop there, like I said, I'm working on the wrong issue. So then I need to use any of these questions. Questions like what questions? why questions, how questions, who questions, any question that invites Joe to have a conversation with me. Now, why is this important? By Joe having a conversation about the affliction he's having, he's going to tell me how he starts to feel about the problem, why he can't quit, what stops him, what makes him quit, what makes him smoke in the first place. This is known as triggers, and all the information I need that'll give me an understanding in my head of almost the perfect picture for Joe. I'm going to allow Joe to paint the perfect picture for me so I can really understand what he's talking about. If you've ever been to the cinema before to see a movie, you'll probably find yourself investigating yourself about the movie. What is the movie about? What stars are in it? What is it about? Is it an action? Is it a comedy? Is it a love? Is it a horror movie? And you'll find your preference about which movie you like first. Very rarely will you just walk into a cinema and hope that the movie they're going to play is exactly what you like. You're going to do some investigation. I'm going to do the same thing with Joe. So let me move forward a couple of questions just to give you an understanding of why we would have this conversation with Joe. So I'm going to ask Joe, what's the problem? He says, Scott, I've been a smoker for 30 years and I can't quit. I'm going to say, okay, Joe, so what's so important about quitting now? And by asking this question, what I'm trying to find out with Joe is what's his motivation. Anybody that wants to overcome something in their life from the standpoint of a hypnotist, they need motivation. If Joe was to respond with something like this, well, I don't know, it just sounds like a good idea. What could you tell from that response? Does Joe sound very excited to quit? Does he have any motivation? Does he have any reason? Not yet. So this could be putting Joe in a position of probably the session won't work because he's really disinterested. If, however, on the other side of that, I asked Joe, so what's so important about quitting now? And Joe says something like this. Well, I just found out that one of my kids is starting to smoke and I don't like it. And I told him to quit and he says, Dad, you have to quit first. This is a great response because now I'm finding out what is Joe's true motivation. What's so important now? And now I have some importance because, as Joe said, one of his children needs to quit and says, Dad, you need to quit first. So I've got some motivation. I've got some leverage at that point. So are we done yet? Have we allowed Joe to paint us the perfect picture? Not yet. Let's find out as much information as Joe as possible. So from here, I've asked Joe, so what are you here for? He says, I can't quit. I'm a smoker. So what's so important now? And he stated that one of his kids are starting smoking. And he asked his child to quit, but his child said, Dad, you need to quit first. Okay, I absorb that information as a hypnotist. I keep that in the back of my mind. Then I might ask, when I'm saying I might ask, there's no set-by-set standard for these questions. All I'm trying to find out is as much details as possible. It's easy to work with more details about the problem and work out what's the best therapy for Joe, what's the best therapy for my client based on the information that I'm gathering. I'm investigating. I'm like Sherlock Holmes at this point, if you will. So Joe's told me that his child has said, you need to quit first. I'm going to say, well, Joe, so what stops you quitting then? Why not just give them up? Joe's going to think about it for a while. And then Joe might respond with, well, Scott, I've tried many times before, but nothing seems to work. So what's the new information we found out now? Well, we found out at some point Joe has tried to quit, but it didn't work for him. What this is telling us is Joe's tried to quit consciously. Maybe he's had the patches. Maybe he's gone cold turkey. Maybe he's tried to put something in front of smoking and put something instead of smoking. And none of that seemed to work. And this is a classical example of why working at a conscious level with your problems cannot resolve an unconscious issue. So I'm going to keep investigating because right now I'm getting curious. What's Joe really trying to tell me? So Joe said, well, I've tried to quit many times, but it's just all too hard. And as a hypnotist, I'm going to put that in my mental bank, if you will. I'm going to keep that for later. I'm going to get more details. So I'm going to ask Joe, well, what's so hard about it? I mean, your child wants you to quit. What's so hard about quitting? And Joe's going to think. And then Joe says something interesting like this. Well, I'm worried that if I quit, I'm going to put on weight. Now let's pause it right there. If you've ever seen a client before, especially for smoking, usually they'll respond with something like this. I'm worried that if I stop smoking, I'm going to put on weight. This is just one example. What this is telling me is Joe has the wrong mindset issue about quitting smoking. So think about this at a conscious level. If I take away the smoking, what mindset issue is Joe left with? Well, if I quit smoking, I'm going to put on weight. This is what we call a conflict. Joe wants to quit, but he's also worried if he does, he's going to get something bad in return. So why would Joe quit then? Because if he quits, he's going to get something in return that's negative. That's the way Joe's thinking. So in order to break this, I need to find out what this mindset issue is. What's this loop that Joe's caught in? If you think about what Joe said before, when he said, I tried to quit, but nothing seemed to work, what that's telling me is the reason it didn't work, because at an unconscious level, the mindset issue is that the unconscious mind of Joe thinks, well, he will put on weight if he quits. So the unconscious mind says something like this. Well, I don't want Joe to put on weight, so I'm not going to quit cigarettes, because right now he's not putting on weight from smoking. And that's what the unconscious mind is tied to. That's the conflict. That's the loop it's caught in. My job as a hypnotist is trying to break that loop. I almost have to debate with the unconscious mind at that point to tell it, hey, this is not the case. Who says Joe has to put on weight by quitting smoking? And I need to convince the unconscious mind through trance and through the therapy that I do that there's other ways to do things. So to backtrack into the hypnotic interview, and again, you'll see footage of this coming up very, very soon, is I'm going to talk to Joe again and just find out more details. So let's find out more of what's happening inside Joe's head. More details. So let's find out more of what's happening inside Joe's head. So Joe, you said just then that you think you're going to put on weight if you quit cigarettes. Is that true? Yes. How do you know that's the case, Joe? So now I'm asking Joe, what's the foundation of that thought? So Joe's going to think, and says, well, my best friend quit smoking and he was very successful, but he also put on 20 kilos. So now I found out another reason why Joe's unconscious mind, which is holding onto the problem, will not let go of the smoking. So that's another thing I need to put in the back of my mind to work on. I need to adjust that mindset, convince and debate with a client's unconscious mind to let go of that thought, because that's not the case. There's many, many examples of people giving up smoking that don't put on weight, but there's also classic examples of people that do. If I don't play with that mindset, if I don't destroy that mindset to point more into a positive state, the problem will come right back. If you've seen clients before, and then you get that dreaded phone call a couple of days later saying it hasn't worked, this is why, bar none, you have worked on the wrong problem. So let's go back to the interview. And again, these interview questions are just what, how, who, why. Don't get lost in the right questions. What I do want you to be have as a mindset for you as a hypnotist is be curious. How has Joe's reality, or how has he convinced himself that this problem exists? Why can't he just let go of it? That's what this investigation is going to do for us. So from here, Joe said, well, my best friend has put on weight. I'm worried I'm going to do the same thing. So I need to think a little bit strategic at this point, and I might ask Joe something like this. Well, Joe, how do you know that's going to be the case for you? I mean, do you know people that have quit smoking before that haven't put on weight? And Joe might think. And so Joe says, well, actually, yes. My sister gave up smoking. She didn't put on weight. So now I bring a new reality to Joe, and he's just recognized this. You see Joe thinking. I said, well, what do you think's more likely? Do you think you're going to give up smoking like your friend and put on weight? Or do you think you're going to be more like your sister, quit smoking and not give up weight? What do you think, Joe? What do you think's more likely? Joe's going to think. And let's say he gives us a response like this. Well, Scott, I'm not too sure. This is a great place to be as a hypnotist. What a lot of hypnotists get scared of is when a client cannot answer their questions. What I'm more interested as a conversational hypnotist is I want my client to get stumped on my questions. When a client cannot answer my questions properly, this means only one thing. They do not have the answer consciously, and that's what I want. The loop you might find your clients going around in when you're having a conversation is the conscious mind butting in. The conscious mind is very, very good at trying to figure things out. And sometimes it does a great job, but in most cases, it does not have the abundant resources the unconscious mind does, and it could only guess at a few things. And when those few things don't work, it gets stumped. So when a client states to you, I don't know, this is a great thing, because the questions past that are going to have to allow your client to go into the unconscious mind to give you those hidden secrets, to give you those hidden clues. That's what the strategic hypnotic interview allows us to do. By asking what, who, when, why questions, is I'm getting my client to a point where they can't answer me consciously. And then in order to answer my questions from them, they actually have to go into the unconscious mind to give me the hidden clues, to give me the hidden things that your client is not aware of. And those things that come out of the unconscious mind are all the gold. That's all the juicy stuff is. That's where the real clues are hidden. And that's why you need to investigate. So let's backtrack again. Let's say I've got my client Jill sitting in front of me, and Jill's having weight issues. I'm going to start the exact same place. So Jill, what are we here for today? And Jill says, well, I need to lose weight. And that's all Jill's given me. So, okay, Jill, what's so important about losing this weight? What do you want to do with, what are you trying to do as a skinnier person? Jill says, well, I'm getting married in 3 months and I want to lose 10 kilos. But Scott, I've tried everything. I've tried a diet. I've been to a personal trainer. Nothing seems to work for me. So, okay, Jill. So what are you hoping I'm going to do for you, Jill? If everything hasn't worked, what are you hoping to get from today's session? And Jill says, well, I want you to help me lose weight. So, okay, Jill. So what stops you from just losing weight by yourself? Jill thinks and thinks and thinks. And Jill comes out and says, well, you know what it is, Scott? I really want my husband to be everything. I've tried a diet. I've been to a personal trainer. Nothing seems to work for me. So, okay, Jill. So what are you hoping I'm going to do for you, Jill? If everything hasn't worked, what are you hoping to get from today's session? And Jill says, well, I want you to help me lose weight. So, okay, Jill. So what stops you from just losing weight by yourself? Jill thinks and thinks and thinks. And Jill comes out and says, well, you know what it is, Scott? I really want my husband to love me for me, regardless of how skinny I am or not. I say, well, Jill, that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing. What made you come to this conclusion? Well, I want my husband to find me really, really attractive on my wedding day, and I don't find myself attractive. So right now we're getting some deeper stuff. We're trying to find out, it's actually going past the weight loss thing right now, and there's more of an identity issue. So my job as a hypnotist, there's some mindset stuff coming up, is start to investigate that more and find out why doesn't Jill think herself as being attractive? What's stopping her? So I might ask that question. So Jill, like you said before, you don't find yourself very attractive. How did you get to that point? Well, Scott, when I look in the mirror, I feel embarrassed. And I'm worried that if I don't lose this weight, my husband's going to leave me after I get married. And there we have it. That is the real issue we need to start working with. The way you can tell that we have a more unconscious issue in regards to a conscious issue is the deepness of the answer. Does it have emotions coming with it? For those who have been on our Spotting Unconscious Moments, you'll notice that the best answers come out after you witness an unconscious moment. That slight pause in thinking, that long reflection on the question that you've just asked, from that pausing of that unconscious moment, the real root cause issue comes out. So for right now, and there's been more investigating to do, and realize this as well, this is a role play that I'm doing with myself, so you're missing out on all the wonderful things. That's why we've attached the bonus footage, so you can see what I'm talking about live in action training other therapists. My job right now is not to work on the weight loss. It's not to work on what Jill thinks she wants. I have to work now on this identity issue that Jill is presenting to me, because if I don't, that weight's always going to be there. So let's investigate some more. So Jill, you said that you've tried everything. You've been to the gym, you do the diets, you do all that sort of stuff, but you said at the same time you feel embarrassed. Okay, so aside from obviously the wedding that you're going through, that you want to go through, you want to feel attractive for your partner. How did you get to the point to make you realize that he might leave you based on the embarrassment you feel about yourself? So Joe's going to think and think and think. Jill's going to think and think and think and say something like this. Well, Scott, my father left my mother and I don't want that to happen to me. So right now we have an even better issue to work with. It's got nothing to do with the weight. Yes, that's a circumstance outside of it. But what Jill's now telling me is she has a deep rooted understanding that maybe marriages end based on the experience she went through with her mum and her dad, based on how someone looks or the embarrassment or the way they feel about themselves. Now, this is a big identity issue for Jill. Now, as a hypnotist, I need to fix this. If I just fix the weight and Jill does lose the weight, how do we know that that's going to make her feel sexy? How do we know that that's going to make Jill feel better about herself? That's not even the real problem. If we as the hypnotists get really strategic with the way we work with clients, instead we work on the identity, we cure Gill's identity, she feels goddamn sexy about herself regardless of how big she is, and she's so confident in her marriage that other things she starts to do start to exude confidence, and her husband loves her even more. If, however, she just loses weight, she's still dealing with those things inside of her. Jill could look $1 million in the mirror but still feel embarrassed. Jill could look $1 million in the mirror but still be worried that her husband's going to leave her based on what her mum and dad went through. This is the difference between working on conscious information and unconscious information. Our goal as a hypnotist with the strategic hypnotic interview is to interview our clients to the point of either getting them to where they can't answer our questions, or finding out what's the really nitty-gritty stuff underneath. What's the real juice? What's the real hidden secrets? And yes, this does take some time to do. So right now, what I want you to do with your notepad and pen is start to write questions down based on a couple of examples. Let's say the first example is a client coming in who doesn't want to feel anxious or scared talking in front of crowds. That's the first context. So what questions might you ask this client? Would you ask them, well, what makes them feel that way? What experience have they had that leads them to believe this? Why do they want to stand on stage in the first place? How do they know they're going to be embarrassed? What's so embarrassing about standing on stage? What are they worried about that will happen that could lead to embarrassment? So there's half a dozen questions that you could start off with. And the idea with the interview is to ask one question, get an answer, and then ask a question about that answer. Now, I'll repeat that. When you're doing the strategic hypnotic interview, you ask one question. You just start somewhere. And based on the answer your client gives you, you ask another question about the answer. Not the whole context, just about the answer they gave you. And you follow that to a T. So you get an answer, you ask a question about the answer. Then you ask another question based on that answer, and so on and so forth. What this allows you to do is direct a client's attention straight into the root cause. And that's where all the gold is. That's where the unconscious mind is going to give you the real issue that you need to work on. And the only way to do this properly is to understand those mindset things we talked about on video 1, which is you need to remember what your client tells you consciously cannot be the real problem. How can the conscious mind penetrate the unconscious mind without trance? That's why as a hypnotherapist, your job is to put them into trance, to influence the unconscious minds. All your client can tell you, bar none, is whatever is happening in the unconscious mind, they can only give you the circumstances of how it affects their life. That's all they can tell you. If you just work on the conscious problem, you're left with the unconscious root cause. And that unconscious root cause will just sprout that problem again. If you come along, you rip the head off again, it'll sprout that problem again. If, however, you're strategic and you think differently like most hypnotists won't, and you go underneath the soil first and pull out the weed from the root and poison and position the soil back to where it needs to be so it's healthy and you maybe plant some better plants there, the unconscious, the strategic hypnotic interview is so important to get at that unconscious root cause. If you don't, the problem will just sprout right on back. And that's the difference. So once again, you go back to questions like, what makes that a problem? How is that a problem for you? How do you know that that's going to happen? What does X have to do with Y? Why do you feel like that? What happens when that happens? What happens when you experience this? Give me an example of what you mean. What stops you from overcoming this problem yourself? All of these questions lead you on a journey through a client's unconscious mind. And that's what's important. That journey is going to give out all the issues and everything you need to understand about a client's problem. So there we have it. There's an introduction to the strategic hypnotic interview. Your goal now is to rewatch these videos again, understand the mindset, because the more you can understand the mindset, the easier it will be for you to follow the upcoming video, which will demonstrate me actually teaching advanced therapists these exact ideas. And you'll see it live in action. You'll see them actually interviewing real people and other students about real problems. And you'll see me intervene from here or there and start to talk about why these mindset issues are important, why this certain question is important, and you'll see the foundation and the layout of the unconscious moment in action and the strategic hypnotic interview in action. So it's been my absolute pleasure to take you through this introduction course. I so look forward to hearing your results based on this mindset and this new strategy that I'm presenting to you, and also look so forward to seeing on our next course coming up. So again, my name is Scott Jansen of the Conversational Hypnosis Academy. It's been my absolute pleasure. Enjoy, have fun, and evolve into a new hypnotherapist based on these strategies. Bye for now.